What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? A very good evening to and welcome to Prime Time News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a quick look at our headlines for tonight.
The President reiterates to the world that Sri Lanka is committed to protect and sustainably manage natural resources. Minister Ali Sabri says that the amendments to 20A presented to the court will be done during the committee stage. Rishad's stance on the 20th Amendment. The former president's warning.
එක පුද්ගලයෙක් ඡන්දයෙන් පත් වුණ පළියට මේ ඔක්කොම ටික අතට දැහැගෙන ඊළඟට මම තමයි රජා කියලා කරන්න පටන් ගත්තොත් මේක අති භයංකාරයි.
Investigations launched into a 20 million rupee robbery in KATANA. A foreign liquor racket carried out under the guise of re-exporting revealed. Indian Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi detained by police.
The child population of this country is 6 million. There are 3,000 children being abused per year. 10,000 children abuse complaints are lodged each year. Around 66% of these abused children are between the ages of 12 and 17, while majority of them are girls. Let us protect our children and nurture them to create a great future. Meanwhile, today is Adiva Full Moon Poya Day. Many devotees across the island engaged in religious observances today.
Though there are only 12 Poya days per year, once every few years an extra Poya day dawns as per the lunar calendar. This year the Adi Poya or the extra Poya has fallen in the month of Wap. Once in every several years an extra Poya day dawns. This year is one such year. When we get such an extra Poya day, we must make sure to engage in religious activities. Therefore, take the best out of this day and collect merits. Many temples across the island organized various events today. Due to COVID-19, devotees who arrived at the temple of the sacred Tooth Relic to engage in religious observances followed health protocols. Meanwhile, many devotees gathered at the ancient Ruan Valley Saya in Anuradhapura. The religious programs held at the temple trees was organized under the auspices of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Siri Dhammaset Dharmadeshana held at the opposition leader's office in Colombo was also conducted today. The special Buddha Puja at the Sri Shakya Malake at the premises of the head office of the Capital Maharaja Group was organized by PE+.
Continuing in more local news, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa highlighted the fact that the government of Sri Lanka is committed to protect and sustainably manage natural resources in the country. The President was addressing the United Nations Summit on Biodiversity yesterday.
Despite the rapid decline seen in biodiversity globally over the recent decades, Sri Lanka is deeply committed to uphold the overarching spirit of the Convention on Biodiversity. Sri Lanka is home to 2 UNESCO Natural Heritage Sites, the Central Highlands and the Singharaja Rainforest Reserve. We are also proud of our 6 sites recognized under the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. Sri Lanka firmly stands committed to protect and sustainably manage these natural assets that contributes to our unique and rich biodiversity. We have been mindful of conserving ecosystems to the highest extent possible, even during the redesigning of cities and urban areas. The wetland parks that we have created in cities, especially in and around our capital, Sri Jayawardenepura Kotte, are home to an array of plant and animal species, offering a mini rainforest experience within crowded cities. The ancient governance of Sri Lanka was built on the concept that the ruler is never the owner of the land. He is merely its caretaker on behalf of his countrymen and all living beings. This is the very principle that my government has adopted in our development agenda.
The Singharaja Forest, the Knuckles Mountain Range and the Central Hills are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The pledge made by the President before the global community to protect these natural resources must be commended. News First highlighted the requirement for proactive action in protecting such natural resources on a number of occasions. Our country is as rich in cultural heritage as we are in natural resources. The sacred city of Anuradhapura, the ancient city of Polonnaruwa, the ancient city of Sigiriya, the sacred city of Kandy, old town of Gaul and its fortifications, and the Rangiri Dambulu Cave Temple are World Cultural Heritage Sites. Seruvilla Mangala Raja Mahaviharaya, the ancient pilgrim route along the Mahaveli River from Seruvilla to Adams Peak, and the ancient Aryakara Viharaya in the Rajangala Archaeological Reserve are on the tentative list of World Heritage Sites of UNESCO. Following the studies conducted by eminent professors like Dr. C.M. Madhuma Bandara of the University of Peradeniya on the Elanga system or the cascade system of tanks in Sri Lanka, this has been recognized as a World Water Heritage. The study conducted highlighted the importance of protecting the cascade system when renovating tanks in Sri Lanka. When the entire country, headed by the President, are gearing up to protect these important sites in the country, certain groups are still working to destroy them. Shouldn't every citizen in the country join the drive to protect these heritage sites for the future generations of this country?
The future of our country is our children, and today Sri Lanka marks Children's Day. Ape Rata, Ape Dati is the theme for Children's Day this year.
In light of Children's Day, students from 5 schools visited the Presidential Secretariat and met President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The provision of library facilities for these students was initiated by the President. A project to improve library facilities for 25 schools representing each district has already commenced. Meanwhile, in a message given on Children's Day, the President stated that his sole objective is to build a country inhabited by citizens who have eradicated physical and mental poverty. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa participated in the State Children's Art Festival on Children's Day. The Prime Minister presided over the evaluation of the students who excelled. The leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa, in his message, highlighted the importance of enforcing the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child at a time when the world is in a state of great confusion. He also stated that 16,000 children in the world die of any cause on a daily basis, and that 50% of the worldwide deaths of children under the age of 5 are due to malnutrition. A commemoration ceremony for Children's Day was held at the Senehasa Education Resource Centre and Information Centre in Narayanpeta under the patronage of the President's wife Anoma Rajapaksa this morning. A special item organised by differently able students was also staged. A special event organised in line with Children's Day was held in Colombo today under the auspices of Shiranti Rajapaksa. Several discussions regarding the importance of children also took place in line with the event.
We vest the responsibilities of taking care of our children with various institutions. We send our children to Dhamma schools and expect them to learn the Dhamma. We send them to schools and university and expect them to become intellectuals. At present, children have been lured to drugs and many have turned out to be drug addicts.
Over the past decades, Sri Lanka has made considerable progress for children. Primary schooling reaches nearly every child. Child mortality is the lowest in the region. But 2020 has been an extremely hard year, but the impressive and fast response of the government of Sri Lanka ensured the health pandemic was controlled, and we commend the government on this. We know that even before COVID-19, a majority of children were being brought up in families that were struggling to get by on insecure incomes. 3/4 of children were living on less than 500 rupees per day. The majority of families have had their spending power squeezed. The price they pay for food comprises more than 40% of their total expenditure. Right now, the government is planning the country's national budget. This budget can be a tool to tackle vulnerability, poverty, malnutrition and violence. It is important that the most vulnerable children and their families get the help they need in this budget to help them avoid further poverty and malnutrition.
During the coronavirus pandemic, when the country was in a lockdown, a series of activities were introduced by our network to keep the children active and engaged under the theme Rise Up Sri Lanka. Sharing drawings based on this theme was the first activity we launched for the children. Over 5,000 drawings from around the country were shared with us via WhatsApp. The Rise Up Sri Lanka song is another fond memory. Many from the country and around the world shared clips featuring their rendition of this song.
Today is the International Day for Older Persons. It is a day which we cannot forget. At a time where the world's elderly population exceeds 37 million, the International Day for Older Persons is celebrated considering the higher risks confronted by older persons during the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. The main event given the International Day for Older Persons in Sri Lanka was held at the Foundation Institute based on the theme Challenges Faced by the Aging Population in the Face of the Pandemic. During the program, several elderly sports personalities who contributed to bringing glory to the country were felicitated at the event. The award for the eldest was received by one of his relatives.
Our focus is now on the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. The petitions filed against the 20th Amendment are currently being taken up for consideration. The Council for the petitioners are due to conclude marking their submissions in court tomorrow. At the beginning of the hearing, the Attorney General submitted a document to the court containing proposed committee stage amendments to the bill titled the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. However, the petitioners point out that this document has no legal standing. The Minister of Justice today assured that the proposed committee stage amendments will be tabled in Parliament.
ඔබතුමා මේ කාර්ක සභා අවස්ථාවේදී සංශෝධන ගෙනෙයි කියන එකට ඔබතුමාලාගේ තියෙන මේ විශ්වාසය මොකක්ද
අපි ගෙනවා ඉතින් අපි ඒක ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා මට ඒක
We confirm that amendments would be made to the 20th Amendment at the committee stage discussions. Based on the assurance of the Cabinet of Ministers, the Prime Minister and the President, I have forwarded the amendments to the Attorney General to be produced at the Supreme Court when the petitions challenging the 20th Amendment to the Constitution were taken up for consideration.
නීතිඥයෙක් වෙලා ඒ හරහා දේශපාලන ඇහිල්ල ඔබතුමා දැන් අධිකරණයකදී වෙලා ඔබතුමා විසින්ම මේ ඉදිරිපත් කරන ලද ව්‍යවස්ථාව හින්දා අධිකරණයේ ස්වාධීනත්වය නැති වෙනයි ඒකට ඔබතුමාට යම් කාලයක වග තියන්න වෙයි කියන්නේ.
මගේ සාමාන්‍ය තනි පුද්ගලයෙකුට ව්‍යවස්ථා ගෙන්න.
An individual cannot present a constitution or amendment by himself. I am working towards bringing forward a constitution as a government. This is a task carried out by the government. Even if someone else was in my position, the amendment will still be presented. In my view, the amendment will not threaten the independence of the judiciary. The amendment allows the executive to take decisions while protecting the independence of the judiciary. We are restoring the powers that were there before. When compared with the 1978 Constitution, the 20th Amendment is not that serious.
සංශෝධනයෙන් කරන්නේ
දැන් මේ යෝජනා කරන දේවල් ආපහු එක පුද්ගලයෙක් කවුරුනත් මට කවක් නැහැ. එක පුද්ගලයෙක්
Just because one person was elected to power, if they try to take away everything and try to act like a king, then it would be a dangerous situation. We do not know who would be appointed after this person. It could be a person more dangerous than the existing person. It could be someone like Hitler. Hitler was someone who killed 30 million innocent people based on only their race. Therefore, the people, especially the youth of the country, must understand what would happen if there is no democracy in the country. We will not be able to live freely or talk freely. There was a time in this country where people were arrested by police just for talking about the misdeeds of ministers. The President, the Prime Minister and the ministers who are appointed by the people should work as per the aspirations of the people. Someone may ask, what is the use of democracy? Because the governments cannot be run according to what the people say. But there are democratic governments all over the world. The Great Britain for over 500 years and France for 400 years. One person doesn't need absolute power to govern a country. The country only needs a leader to lead. This leader, whether it is the president or the prime minister, must first have some brains. They need knowledge about governance. They should have management skills. They say that things should be done just because they say so, but they should have the skills to get the support of all through discussion. It is easy for one person to go about giving orders, as getting things done through discussion takes time. This is why I said it is dangerous to give too much power to one person. It is Gotabaya Rajapaksa who is the president. I see that he is trying to take a different path. I hope that he will realize that though there are many to give him advice, he is someone with little experience with politics. They say he is a good administrator and a manager. I hope and wish that he would realize the damage and the danger that he might inflict not only upon himself but the entire country through bringing together too much power on him. I hope that he would change this.
හානිය මහා හානිය එතුමා අවබෝධ කරගෙන මේක ටිකක් වෙනස් කරයි කියලා මම ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා.
The 20th Amendment will resolve several problems that the people were facing. We would like to reiterate that this amendment is not what will be approved following the amendments made at the committee stage. However, our main target is to bring in a new constitution. That's exactly what we said. We need a new constitution. Although this amendment was brought in as a temporary measure, we are currently drafting a new constitution and hope to present it in a few months. We have already appointed a committee to look into this matter.
The 20th Amendment will be a threat to individual liberty and fundamental rights. They want to cause a social catastrophe. There are some individuals who are involved in premeditated crimes. You might be wanting to cause a collapse in Gotabaya's administration. However, Gotabaya is saying that this is a meditated crime. If you express such a view on social media, you will be charged for committing a premeditated crime. The intelligence units will come after you. This situation is going to be worse than JR's administration in 1978. For example, the administration of J.R. Jayawardene did not involve nepotism. He was a genuine person. During Gotabaya's administration, Basil and Namal are both ministers. What would happen next is that Basil will become president. In that case, who will become the prime minister? It would be Namal. Namal would then go on to become president. That shows that there is a plan to incorporate their family members into the country's administration. Apart from the nepotism, this will also entail racism and several other drawbacks. Therefore, this must be defeated. Sometimes we might not be able to do this now, but we will be able to rally the people for this cause. The US might say that they are willing to offer large amounts of US dollars in exchange for a law that would allow them to purchase lands in the country. The contents of the 20th Amendment aim at looting public resources and suppressing the people. They are now arguing that kings are born with the people's mandate. We wish to ask them whether it has been included in their election manifesto.
Will other parties support the government to pass the 20th Amendment in the Parliament? Opposition MP Rishad Bathiuddin participated in a function with Minister Chamal Rajapaksa in Vavuniya today. This was the opening ceremony of the newly built auditorium building of the Vavuniya District Secretariat. Addressing the ceremony, Secretary of Defence expressed his ideas on MP Rishad Bathiuddin.
Vanni and Vavuniya areas are not new to me. I was appointed by the government at that time as the competent authority on IDPS. I remember how the former Minister of Resettlement, our current Member of Parliament Rishad Bathiuddin, how we worked without any racial or religious discrimination as citizens of Sri Lanka and how we made significant progress in this district.
After the function, journalists asked Rishad Bathiuddin if he would support the 20th Amendment in the Parliament.
I am a party leader. We have a separate party. Our party has 4 members in Parliament. We agreed with some provisions on the 20th Amendment, but we did not agree with some provisions. No one in the government has discussed this with us. Our party will make the decision at the right time.
ඒ අපේ පක්ෂය ඒ වෙලාව තමයි තීන්දුව කරන්න කාට.
මේ වෙනකොට ඊයේ දිනේදී ඔබතුමාගේ සහෝදරයා නිදහස් කර පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය සම්බන්ධයෙන් යම් ප්‍රශ්න කිරීමට අත්අඩංගු ගොඩාරගෙන මාස 5කට පස්සේ
ඒ නිසා මේ පරීක්ෂණයට
We must give our fullest support to this investigation. My brother and I are on the same page on this matter. I am still of the opinion that if anyone is involved in this incident, all those involved should be punished. I can say that neither me nor my brother were involved in this incident.
අපි මම නම් කියන්නේ මේ බෝම්බ පාස්කු ඉරිදා සිද්ධියත් එක්ක කිසිම සම්බන්ධයක් මට හෝ මගේ සහෝදරයට නැහැ කියලා එදත් මං කිව්වා අදත් කියනවා හෙටත් මං කියනවා.
அரசியல் பழி வாங்கலாம் நீங்க
இது சம்பந்தமாக நான் எந்த கருத்தும் கூற விரும்பவில்லை.
இந்த அரசாங்கத்தோடு சேர்ந்து எங்களுடைய வாய்ப்பு இருப்பதாக கூறப்படுகின்றதா உங்களோட கருத்து?
No comment.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Muslim Congress leader Rauf Hakim recently told the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the April 21st attacks that there was an external entity behind the bombings. The witness had said that he would not reveal the entity in public and had stated that he would testify regarding that before the Commission in the absence of the media.
When the Commission had questioned our leader on who was the external force, he had answered the question properly. If I may quote him, he said that he is a leader who represents one community in the country. It is not apt to comment on an external force unless there is evidence to support that. However, our leader said that it was up to the Commission to identify the force based on the evidence that has been presented before them. That is what I am saying as well.
ஊடகவியலாளர்கள் இல்லாத சந்தர்ப்பத்திலே இந்த விடயத்தினை ஆணைக்குழுவின் உறுப்பினர்களுக்கு தனியாக கூறுவதற்கு தான் விரும்புவதாக குறிப்பிட்டிருந்தார்.
When he told the Commission that he wanted to testify in camera, I was appearing for him as his lawyer. Rather than identifying the force, he gave evidence on who it could be and presented several facts on that. Those matters cannot be revealed in the presence of the media. He gave whatever evidence he could in a clear manner. When he was giving evidence, the Commission listened to him with enthusiasm. I believe that they will make a special note on this while preparing the final report. When looking at the matter in which evidence was being presented to the Commission by our leader, I understood that the investigations are taking place.
அந்த நிகழ்வுகளை ஒன்றொன்றாக சொல்லியிருந்தார்கள். அவர் சொல்லி போகும் பொழுது அந்த ஆணைக்குழு உறுப்பினர்களே மெய் மறந்து கேட்டு.
What is the external entity that SLMC leader Rauf Hakim is referring to over this matter? Shouldn't that be revealed before the country? Evidence presented before the Commission so far has revealed that Indian intelligence units had issued warnings of an attack days ahead of the April 21st bombings. The attention that was paid to these intelligence warnings and the manner in which it had been circulated among local officials has also been revealed before the Commission. Former IGP Pujit Jayasundara had recently told the Commission that the bomber who intended to blow himself up at the Taj Samudra Hotel had met an intelligence officer on his way to a lodge in Devala, where he had exploded his suicide vest. A senior police official had recently told the Presidential Commission that a woman identified as Sarah, who was the wife of the bomber at the Katuapitiya church, had fled to India. Against such a backdrop, the opposition had recently questioned why the intelligence warnings could not be communicated in a diplomatic manner.
It is said that Indian intelligence units had warned Sri Lanka of a massive wave of attacks that could occur. If a massive damage is going to occur in the country, why didn't they inform the people about it instead of passing on the warnings to small units in the government? For example, today we were informed that the Prime Ministers of India and Sri Lanka had engaged in an extensive discussion on the problems faced by fishermen. If the country is to come under a massive attack, it is important to inform the main individuals in the country instead of informing small units about it. It is questionable as to why this did not take place.
Meanwhile, journalists questioned State Minister Sarath Weerasekara yesterday on a point raised by Narendra Modi during a recent discussion between the Prime Ministers of India and Sri Lanka on the importance of implementing the 30th Amendment to the Constitution. The Indian government cannot pressurize Sri Lanka to implement the 13th Amendment because we are an independent nation. The 13th Amendment was brought in as part of the Indo-Lanka Agreement. As per the agreement, India has certain conditions that should have been fulfilled as well. One condition was to demilitarize the LTTE, but this did not happen and India failed to meet the condition. So we need to question as to how far was this agreement enforced. Whatever said or done, whether we continue with the provincial council system or not, is a matter that should be dealt internally. It is an internal matter for which a decision should be reached by the President of Sri Lanka and not the presidents or prime ministers of any other nation.
මිස වෙන රටවල ඉන්න අගමැතිවරු සහ ජනාධිපතිවරු නෙමෙයි.
The Sri Lankan government has responded to a report produced by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva.
The report notes alleged surveillance of Sri Lankan civil society organizations, human rights defenders and others in Sri Lanka and in Geneva. The report also notes that in December 2019, the Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights addressed patterns of intimidation and reprisals to the government in writing. The report says OHCHR received continued allegations of surveillance of civil society organizations, human rights defenders and families of victims of violation. The report adds that there were repeated visits by police and intelligence services questioning organizations about inter alia, the staff and activities related to the UN. Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights, Ils Brands-Keris, also spoke about Sri Lanka in an interactive session yesterday.
We are also aware that in restrictive environments, some individuals and groups do not dare engage with us, which is indicative of the shrinking of civic space in those countries. The report identifies instances where the High Commissioner has drawn particular attention, including in Libya, Nicaragua, the Philippines, Russian Federation, Sri Lanka, United Arab Emirates, and Venezuela.
The government has insisted that the security forces and intelligence agencies are not engaged in monitoring any specific group of people in the country.
The government of Sri Lanka wishes to make the following observations with regard to the reference contained in the annual report of the Secretary General presented today. With regard to alleged intimidating visits, surveillance, complaints of harassment and reprisals referred to in the report, Sri Lanka wishes to make an invitation to the parties concerned to make formal complaints to law enforcement authorities or to independent national institutions such as the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka or the National Police Commission so that action can be taken to investigate the alleged incidents. The government has already publicly refuted these allegations and is committed to protecting and promoting freedom of expression and civil society space and ensuring that complaints received on alleged attacks against journalists, human rights defenders and civil society are investigated and prosecuted. It is also reiterated that apart from operating routine security networks in the interest of national security, particularly after the devastating Easter Sunday terrorist attacks, the security forces and intelligence agencies are not engaged in monitoring any specific group of people in the country. We believe for any country compromising its national security interests amidst looming sophistication of strategies of radical and extreme elements world around is bound to face regrettable consequences. Hence, Sri Lanka requests all parties to be mindful of that ground reality in this context.
Meanwhile, this is a revelation about mass-scale deforestation taking place in the Thibirigola Forest Reserve in Damana, Ampara.
This is the Bakpitiawa village that has an history that dates back to the era of King Sadatissa. This area, which was identified as Batdun Metiawata, is on the brink of destruction due to illegal cultivation taking place in the area. 9,000 acres of land belonging to the Wildlife Department have already been cleared. A group of individuals who are non-residents of Ampara have been engaged in such illegal activities for some time now. 3 archaeological sites have been destroyed so far. If authorities do not take immediate action against this matter, our future generations will lose yet another natural resource of our country.
The government has cancelled gazette notifications issued for issuing legal documents to persons residing in government lands without any documents by a few days.
මුතුමනි දැන් අර අමාත්‍යාංශයේ අලුත් චක්‍රලේඛයේ හේතුවෙන් අනුවිනාශය ශීඝ්‍ර වුණා කියලා මතයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ගැන මොකද පුතුමා හිතන්නේ?
මේ චක්‍රලේඛය අපි නිකුත් කරේ කාලාන්තරයක් තිස්සේ ඉන්න සාමාන්‍ය අක්කර භාගයේ අක්කරයේ දෙක වගා කරන අහිංසක ගොවි මහත්තුරු ඉන්නවා. ඒ මහත්තුරුන්ට ලංකුණයක් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් විදියට ඔය බලපත්‍රයක් ලබා දෙන්න තමයි අපි චක්‍රලේඛය නිකුත් කරේ. එහෙම නැතුව අපි කැලෑ විනාශ කරලා කැලෑ අල්ලා ගන්න අයටම බලපත්‍ර ඔක්කොම දෙන්න නෙමෙයි. අපි උඩරිම අක්කර 3කට සීමා කරලා තිබේ. ඒ දැනට අදාට වගා ගන්නවට තමයි අපි බලපත්‍ර නැත්තම් ඒ දීමනා පත්‍රය ලබා දෙන්නේ. ඒක නැත්නම් අලුතෙන් ගෙනල්ලා අපි පත්‍ර දෙන්න ඉරේ දාන්න ඒ අවශ්‍ය නීති විග්‍රහමාර්ග ගන්නවා මිසක්
සම්පූර්ණ මේ වන විනාශය පිළිබඳ
About 99% of the news carried out on environmental destruction are fake. I should especially note that I have observed that most of the news on environmental damages reported on social media are false. They will not be supported by the government. I wish to state that very clearly.
ලැබෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. ඒක මම පැහැදිලිව කියනවා.
Who is trying to deceive who? We report, you decide.
Still in local news, 3 police teams have been deployed to arrest the suspects connected to the robbery of over 10 million rupees from businessmen in KATANA. Police said that they have launched investigations into the incident.
The manner in which 7 suspects had arrived at the house that is located on a 50-acre land had been captured by CCTV cameras. According to the police, the incident had taken place around 9:30 last morning. Police said that 5 individuals who arrived in a car and 2 others who arrived on a motorcycle were involved in the robbery. Preliminary investigations have revealed that the robbers had threatened the occupants of the house and had held them captive during the theft. Everyone was at home. They demanded us to show them the safe. We said that we do not have a safe at home. The robbers then asked us to remain seated and comb through the rooms. Several varieties of birds that had been caged at this house were also discovered by the police. The senior superintendent of the Negombo police said that the police have identified the suspects connected to the incident. We have the necessary information. We will soon arrest the suspects. The investigations are being carried out by 3 teams. One team is headed by Prasad Munusinghe, who is the DIG of the Western Province North Division, while 2 teams are led by me in my capacity as the police superintendent of Negombo.
The Preventive Directorate of Sri Lanka Customs seized a 40-feet container said to contain foreign liquor intended to be re-exported to Bangladesh.
Sri Lanka Customs media spokesperson Sunil Jayaratne said 11,257 litres of foreign liquor, which was imported on a duty-free basis, had been released to the local market without paying the levies due to the state. The estimated revenue loss to the government are 40 million rupees.
Former Defence Secretary Hemasuri Fernando has admitted that the previous government, including him, must bear responsibility over last year's April 21st attacks. He made these remarks at the Presidential Commission probing the bombings. Former IGP Pudit Jayasundara also testified at the commission today.
Former Police Chief Pujit Jayasundara told the Presidential Commission probing the April 21st attacks that he was not aware of the National Defence Policy that had been drafted in 2016. The Presidential Commission was previously informed that the policy had been prepared with the assistance of the Institute of National Security Studies Sri Lanka that fell under the purview of the Defence Ministry. However, the witness said that he was not aware of the policy or the institute, although he served as the Inspector General of Police since the 20th of April 2016. Meanwhile, the former police chief pointed out that the foreign intelligence warnings of an attack that he received on the 9th of April last year had not been confirmed by the State Intelligence Service. He conceded that he had not contacted the State Intelligence Service to obtain more clarification over the matter. Responding to the commission on whether he would act in the same manner if the warning indicated a threat to the country's president, the former IGP said that in such an event he would inform the president about the matter and hold talks with the source and also the relevant units. It was also revealed that the SIS in July 2018 had sent the former IGP a list of 8 Sri Lankans who had migrated to Syria and joined the ISIS terrorist group, including the brother of a police officer.
And with that, wrap up news for tonight. Do take care and good night.